Hey there, organic chemistry friends. We made it to the end of week 4. We got to learn about alcohols this week, either as a solution or just as the generic organic family with a hydroxyl group. So some highlights from the week. I want to start by talking about the extra credit survey, so kind of a little check-in survey that I created. Your class is so incredibly close to having the necessary number of students do it for everybody to get extra credit. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to want to look at your learning outcomes and to-do list, and there's a link there and it describes the assignment. I also want to talk about some things that I learned from looking at the surveys responses from those of you who have already turned it in. So in general, some themes, students are spending about 70 to 35 hours on the course every week, which 100% of you felt like was kind of to be expected for a college level science course. And then all of you feel that you have the necessary technology to be successful in the class, which makes me happy because that was a definite concern of mine of just, do you have internet? Do you have technology? So that was good. There weren't necessarily a lot of overall patterns, particularly in the suggestions area, but I did want to address just, you kind of all said different things, but just some themes or ideas that, that at least I think are worth talking about. So first of all, Remind was by far the most favored form of communication that people put, which is great. And I will continue to use it. The only thing is I have very few characters in Remind that I can send, which is why they tend to only be able to be 1 or 2 sentences. So what I will probably still need to use Canvas announcements, but I can at least send out a Remind so that you know there's an important announcement. Remind is great for a very simple statement. Again, maximum 3 sentences long, so it can be like, hey, there's an important announcement, go and check. But I can't send out anything larger, but it's good to know that that is the preferred form of communication. Another comment, this wasn't a major pattern, but it was made, was looking for more feedback on the tests. First of all, you're always welcome to set an appointment with me and I can share my screen and we can talk about questions. But another thing is when I did go through that test, I did, on a number of problems and places, put in a recorded comment where I just recorded my voice talking about your problem and what you did wrong. So you might not be aware that those are there. So when you're looking at those feedback, you might want to double check for that, because I am trying to give feedback on those kinds of things. So either you might need more feedback than you're getting, or you're not aware of the feedback that is there through Connect. So just double check and let me know if you have trouble finding those. The next thing was more practice problems. Again, maybe 2 people commented on this. This is a general common theme for any class, I think. The more practice, the better. If I had more practice worksheets, they'd already be available on Canvas. But I would like to draw your attention to just your textbook, which you have either as a physical book or you have via Connect, because everybody has access to the ebook over Connect. Every single chapter has usually between about 70 and 100 practice problems. So don't forget your your textbook as a valuable resource for extra practice problems. Since I probably won't be able to find any more for you right now, you do have quite a few at your fingertips. I agree. More practice problems is always better. The discussions came up by less than 20% of the students who applied, but I did want to talk about them a little bit anyway, so I'm kind of glad they came up, but again, it wasn't a major theme. And I made some comments on this week's discussion that I would definitely encourage you to look at, all of you. Some were about accuracy, making sure that we're making the correct statements, and some were about the discussions themselves. Some of you know that my background, my graduate degree is actually in more education and the study of learning. It's even just my personal passion. I love cognitive science and understanding the science of how we learn. And that's actually why I have discussions, even though I don't even love writing them and I don't love grading them. The value in them comes down to some educational theories. And I only tell you that so that you know I'm not including discussions just to frustrate you. But there is a brain benefit to thinking about material before you've even learned about it, even though you're probably going to say wrong things in that first post. There's benefit about coming back to it after you've learned more, and there's benefit in interacting with your peers. Even if mistakes are made during that process, it still does trigger this process in your brain called memory consolidation. So if you want to talk to me more about the educational theory upon which that's based, you're welcome to. I love nerding out on that kind of stuff, but the discussions have a function in the class, and even the frustration that might generate has a function in your brain. And so just to let you know, I don't do that just to give you more work. I know we all have a lot of work to do. I do it because deep down your learning is the most important thing to me. And then the last thing I want to talk about in terms of highlights is when I went to write this slide, I actually struggled a little bit because I was like, were there highlights from the week? I'll be honest, I've been a little bit down the last couple weeks, particularly with the college making that official decision that classes will be online in the summer and the fall for the most part, and the extension of the stay-at-home order for the state of Washington through at least May 31st. I miss students. I miss teaching in the way that I fell in love with, which is a face-to-face. I miss seeing you guys and helping you in a more interactive, in-the-moment way. So I don't know, I've been a little sad and down about it. And so I'm doing self-care. I'm doing the right thing. We just bought me a bike. You might see me out on a bike soon. So as my extra credit for this week is that if you will send me a text using our Remind, and you can tell me how you're doing. Just tell me how you're doing. It doesn't have to be about the class necessarily. It can be about you emotionally. And if you're not comfortable with that, that's okay. If you'd rather, you can just tell me what's one thing you're doing for self-care. So for self-care this week, I've been going on pretty regular bike rides using my daughter's bike, which is too tall for me, and so I nearly tip over every time I try to get off of it. So that's my self-care for the week. So I look forward to hearing from you, and you will receive an extra credit point for doing that. So moving on, FYIs and reminders. Do not forget that we have an assistant for this course. SI might not be the right word, but Anna Parton, who works for the college, that her information on how to get to her Zoom sessions and the time that they are is on Canvas. At present, she only has one student that regularly attends, and I think we're missing out on a valuable resource by not using her. If you are in need of technology, there are laptops still available from the library, and you can email them to check those out and schedule picking those up. And then registration is starting very soon for summer and for fall quarters. So if you have under 30 credits, don't forget that you need to be in contact with your advisor in order to get your PIN release. So there's just my little plug for advising. Probably doesn't apply to very many of you, but just in case, it's an important thing to consider. So we covered a lot this week. In fact, we covered an entire chapter of organic chemistry. So it's a lot. Alcohols and phenols and thiols and bears, oh my. So you discussed the solubility of alcohols in your discussion group, and hopefully you realized that there's a number of factors. We do expect alcohols to be pretty soluble in water because of the hydrogen bonding that can happen between the water molecule and the hydroxyl group of the alcohol. However, if the alcohol gets large, where there's a lot of carbon groups, then the solubility becomes decreased. Every hydroxyl group can solubilize about 4 carbons. So if you only have one hydroxyl group for about 4 carbons, that can go into solution pretty well, but if it gets bigger than that, more carbons than that, the hydrogen bonding isn't strong enough to keep the big nonpolar portion in solution. And then of course, if you're a molecule like glycerol, you're going to have a lot of opportunities for hydrogen bonding and be very soluble in water, as we see with glycerol. You also got to discuss the either you get it or you don't t-shirt, which I would highly recommend because then you get to be super smug about it as you wear it out in public for the people who don't get it. And then also you learned a little bit about the interesting and kind of dark history of phenol. Now, in order to participate in that phenol discussion, you did have to do all the reading, which included an article. If you don't know where that article is, it's in your learning outcomes and to-do list from week 4 that talks about phenol's saving grace for the medical community and also the way it's been used negatively in the past. So where are we going next? So we're actually going to be diving more into some organic families that we learned about a little bit this week, our aldehydes and ketones, but we're going to go into more depth, learn about their properties and their naming and their chemistry. We also get to learn about some of their ways they impacted me and my life. Another thing is, if you're paying attention to our syllabus, we will be also having our Unit 2 test this next week over chapters 12 and 13. Sorry, I had to think about that. So our Unit 2 test should open soon. So what's next? We're going into week 5. That's going to be marking the halfway point for our quarter. So we're hitting that tip, and then it's going to be all downhill from here, but hopefully not in a negative way. So what's next? Complete anything from week 4 that you haven't done yet. Maybe that's the quiz, maybe that's the lab, maybe that's the survey, but catch up on all your week 4 material. Make that initial post to next week's discussions. Remember, you do not have to be correct at all in that. It is fine to say, I really have no idea. I look forward to learning more about this. I don't expect you to go and do research to do that post. It's fine. I want the second post to have some major detail and accuracy. The first post is all about priming the pump of your brain to get your brain excited. Whether you feel that excitement or not is irrelevant, but your brain is now primed to learn about more material. And then begin working on your that week to-do list. Remember to always open up and look thoroughly at the learning outcome and to-do list. And finally, and I think probably the most important on this slide, be kind to yourself this weekend. Do something for self-care, exercise, practice gratitude, journal, go outside, go on a bike ride. Even if your bike is too tall and you might tip over at the end, it's worth it. So I look forward to helping you guys and seeing you in the ways I do get to see you more in the future. Have a great weekend.